Hello and welcome in for another episode of Below the Rim Basketball. I am your host, Quinn Carey. If you are joining me here on YouTube, as always, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Make sure to throw this video a like, subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment here, leave me a comment on past videos. Would love to get your takes on my takes and hear from you guys. Any and all feedback is greatly appreciated. So once again, this is Below the Rim Basketball. I am Quinn Carey. Happy Friday to us all. Another crazy night in the NBA playoffs. Two big upsets that we're going to touch on here right off the top. So let's just dive right into it. Starting with our Denver Nuggets are going home. The Minnesota Timberwolves finish out the series, win 4-2. They close out the Denver Nuggets and Nikola Jokic at home there in Minnesota. Jaden Daniels goes for a career high 32 points, 10 boards. He was just awesome on the defensive end, as he always is. And then he was just money on his little pull-up jumpers, little mid-range game, and he was huge down the stretch, hitting some huge shots for Minnesota. So we had Jaden McDaniels going off, and then this one was crazy because you have no Anthony Edwards, no Dante DiVincenzo, and then Ayo Dosunmu, who scored 43 points earlier in the season. He ended up being out for the game as well. So I'm looking at this like, oh my gosh, Minnesota's now down their top three. Maybe DiVincenzo's maybe not one of their top three scorers, but two of their top scorers in this series and three of their top guys. And you're just thinking, well, here you go for Denver. The door is open. Here's your opportunity to get a win. Bring this back to Denver. Nikola Jokic has been playing well. He played well tonight, honestly. Didn't do a whole ton down the stretch, but finished with 28, 9, and 10. So honestly, really good game from Jokic. Good game from Cam Johnson for the Nuggets. He stepped up and hit a ton of shots. Was struggling a little bit late defensively, playing with the foul trouble. He was getting targeted, but nonetheless, he was the only guy on the Nuggets roster, minus Nikola Jokic, who could hit a shot. Jamal Murray had one of the worst games that I've seen from him, particularly in the postseason. And then nobody else could step up and find the bottom of the net. Made it really tough for Jokic late, honestly. He didn't take a ton of shots late, but they were just keen on him making other guys step up and hit shots, and they couldn't do it. So Minnesota, like we talked about on Wednesday, I was rocking with the Nuggets, so I picked them, and I picked them in our pick show. But as we said, at home for Minnesota, there was a chance that that crowd was going to be rocking, and if they just defend the way that they're capable of, if you have guys step up, the role players at home, which we'll talk about here in a moment, you give yourself a chance to win that series and win that game, and now you're moving on to play the San Antonio Spurs, which is going to be a whole different matchup. Obviously, you're going up against Wembanyama, and then that crew, we'll talk about that here in a little bit too. But in the absence of Ayo Dosunmu in yesterday's game, along with Anthony Edwards, DiVincenzo, we have the second-year guy, Terrence Shannon, out of Illinois. If you remember him from those Illinois teams that made some good runs a couple years ago with Brad Underwood's teams. He was fantastic. He had 24 points, 6 boards, and he was just killing them all night. And the only area he struggled with was from 3. He was only 1 for 7 from 3. But then late in that fourth quarter, late in the shot clock, Wolves are up 3, looking to kind of give themselves a little bit of separation over the few minutes left. They kick out, I believe it was Gobert, kick out over there to the corner for Shannon. He buries a 3, his 1-3 of the game, but it was a huge one. It was nails. And after that shot, it kind of felt like, man, you're running out of time if you're Denver. I don't know if they're going to be able to make up enough of this ground. So unbelievable game from Terrence Shannon. Who would have thought that to close out Nikola Jokic, 3-time MVP and former NBA champion, and the Denver Nuggets, that you would need Terrence Shannon. He'd be the one stepping up. So pretty remarkable. Obviously, Jaden McDaniels, I thought, was the best player for Minnesota. He backed up all that talk that we talked about earlier in this series, where he was calling out all those defenders. You saw him going at those guys, and he's been doing it all series, but after making those comments, he was making a point of attacking all of those guys that he called out. Did it again last night, goes for a career high 32, like we said. And the Nuggets, like we touched on, just could not handle their defense down the stretch. Minnesota was too strong defensively. Their interior players frustrated all of the easy interior looks that you should be getting from the Nuggets, and the guards just could not get anything going. Again, the struggles from Jamal Murray can't be overstated. I believe 12 points on 17 shots. Just can't have that from your other all-star teammate, first-time all-star this year for Jamal Murray, which leads me to kind of ask the question. Jokic was kind of touching on it. Reporters were asking about this post-game, and he's kind of deflecting as players do. But have we seen the last game with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray as teammates? Because I think that this version of the Denver Nuggets. It's time to blow it up. It worked in 2023 with the pieces that you had around Jokic, Murray, but now you just don't have enough. And the biggest problem for this Denver Nuggets team is that they can't defend at all. And you have one of the best offensive players in the world in Nikola Jokic, and then you surround him with a bunch of guys that are good offensive players, but they don't give you anything defensively, which, as we've touched on, a lot of people have touched on. That is one of the areas on defense that Jokic can struggle and needs some help, and that's where the roster could use its most improvement, is on its athleticism and its defense. So I think that Jamal Murray just doesn't fit into the equation anymore. I think his usage rate doesn't quite work with Jokic. If you're going to get the best out of Jamal Murray, you need Jokic having the ball. Both of those guys kind of need the ball in their hands. Obviously, Murray's a great shooter, can be very streaky though, and so I think he is somebody that is better when he is going one-on-one, looking to create for himself and or for others. So looking at this roster, you have Aaron Gordon, who's been injured in the last 2 postseasons. Is it time to maybe move on from him? I love Aaron Gordon. I think he is a veteran staple piece for them there in Denver. I think he brings a lot more to the court than just what he brings in the games. I think he's one of those veteran leaders that does a lot off the court that we probably don't see. But what do you do here? You have Cam Johnson on an expiring contract. You have Jamal Murray. You have Aaron Gordon. You don't necessarily want to get rid of all of those guys, but you have the pieces. You don't have much draft picks and draft capital. But if you can take some of those pieces and turn this into more of a defensively built roster with some slashers and cutters that can get to the cup offensively, play off of Jokic, and play with his great passing ability, I think you need to load up defensively and bolster this roster around Jokic. Give them a chance to slow some of these teams down that they're going to get matched up with in the Western Conference, because they are just some beasts of teams, obviously including Oklahoma City, San Antonio Spurs. But even this Minnesota team, there's no reason that they, without Anthony Edwards, without Dante DiVincenzo, should be able to score at the rate that they are. So I think we've reached the end of the road for Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic. They were teammates for 9 years. Obviously, 2023, you win the NBA championship, and we just, they have not been able to get out of the second round, or first round in this case this year, since that NBA championship. We have yet to see them back in the Western Conference Finals. So I'm just not sure that this team, you can bring this back after getting bounced in the first round and have confidence that you're going to bring this back and it's going to be different this time around. So I think it might be time to blow things up for the Denver Nuggets, and this might be the last time that we see Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic play together. So other crazy game last night, the earlier game. Once again, we talked about this a little bit in our last show, that what the heck is going on with the Celtics, and I said we maybe should be asking what the heck's going on with the Sixers. Do they have something cooking there in Philadelphia that they can make a little run here in the Eastern Conference, which feels wide open right now? Because Philadelphia 76ers go home and just absolutely boat race the Boston Celtics. We're up by 21, 22 at one point there late in the third. And so there's absolute demolishing of the Boston Celtics. We've talked a lot about on the show how the Celtics they've been a team that relies a ton on their three-point shooting. I had touched on how the role players and the team in general shot super, super well in Philadelphia in the first 2 games of the series on the road. And I was worried that they weren't going to be able to replicate that. And they weren't. They go 12 of 41 last game. Game 5 was 28%. Game 6 here was 29% from 3. In credit, they only shot 39 in the last game, 41 in this game, which by their standards is not a crazy, crazy high shooting night. But Tatum and Brown have not been able to get anything going. They're getting super flustered by, I think, the spacing with Joel Embiid back, kind of clogging up the middle of the paint for the Sixers. And now you can rotate in Andre Drummond behind Embiid, and that's where he can be more of a factor as opposed to being the main guy on that defense. So just really a big struggle for the Celtics. You had Tyrese Maxey going for 30 points. He's been awesome in this series. He's been really, really good. He is starting to kind of blossom into one of the young superstars in the East and one of the young superstars in the league right before our eyes. Obviously, he's been good, but I think this playoff run, he's really showing what a star he is. He had Paul George going for 23. And then the wrinkle that is tough for the Celtics is that you just get absolutely hosed and run out of the gym. And Embiid only had 19 points. He did have 10 rebounds and he did have 8 assists with only 1 turnover. They were sending doubles at him, so he was not forcing things. But he was just executing and destroying the double teams. He was pinpoint passing out of there. Again, 1 turnover. So the Celtics were just getting killed, and we saw this in the last game. They don't have an answer for Joel Embiid. So I don't know if you're the Celtics. I don't know what the answer is going home, because you, again, are just not going to be able to magically bring in somebody that can defend Joel Embiid, that can handle him one-on-one, or at least give you a good effort one-on-one. So the Boston Celtics going back home, they are my pick. This could be a tough first round for me. I picked the Denver Nuggets and the Celtics to meet in the NBA Finals. And there is a chance that we see both of those teams on the couch at home, going to Cancun, whatever they do, by the end of this first round, which would be pretty insane, would be a testament to the new wave of NBA talent that is coming up in some of these younger teams. But nonetheless, the Sixers now have an incredible chance. Obviously, Boston's going home in front of the home crowd. You anticipate that you're going to finally shoot better. Like we talked about, they have been a roller coaster when it comes to shooting. So you anticipate that you'll shoot better, anticipate that your role players will be a little bit better at home. But again, you don't have that answer for Joel Embiid. And if a guy like Maxey, if a guy like VJ Edgecombe, Kelly Oubre, who both poured in 14 points in this game, if either one of those guys can hit shots and get hot for them in a role where all the focus is on Embiid and then Maxey and then on occasion Paul George, if guys like that can get hot for the Sixers, they can absolutely go into Boston and win this game, and they can win this game with margin, as we have seen them do in the last two games with Joel Embiid playing like the Joel Embiid that we know. So that was crazy. Derek White for the Celtics has really, really been struggling in this series. I don't know exactly what has happened there. He's getting a little bit older now. He's in his early 30s. But you see he's kind of in that third best player behind Brown and Tatum. And particularly when Brown and Tatum are not having great games, I think we now see that he was kind of once the fourth best player on their roster a couple years ago when they were winning the championship. And that was just lethal. But now with Derek White being your third best player and then being relied on to be a scoring threat in those games where Brown and Tatum are not contributing and he's going to have to create for himself, I don't know if that's a great role for him, particularly as he is aging. And so unfortunately, Derek White really, really struggling in the series. We'll see. Hopefully he can get it going at home for the Celtics' sake, for my finals prediction's sake, at least to get one of the teams right. I would love to see the Celtics right the ship and figure that out. Derek White's going to be a huge piece of that. So we'll see. It's been major struggles for him. And then our last game last night, the Knicks throttle the Hawks. I think the Knicks just kind of figured out the formula. And like we talked about, the ball has been just flowing offensively and is no longer sticking with just one guy for long stretches trying to go one-on-one ISO. It's now moving around. They're getting guys involved. And this was just an absolute bloodbath. They led by 50. The Knicks led by 50 in the first half at one point. They were up 75-25 at one point, which, I'm out here on the West Coast. I'm coming home from work. That's the earliest game. So I'm missing like the first 20, 25 minutes. I get home, I check my score app to see as I'm walking upstairs, and I'm just like, there's barely even a point in turning this game on, and they're already up 25, 28, whatever it was. And then you just see that balloon to 50. And so I thought it was good. You had a great game from OG Anunoby, Bridges as well. Mikal Bridges had a good offensive night, which is good for them. I think particularly Bridges, to see the ball go through the hoop is helpful going into the next round. Brunson Cat don't need to do too much for them. Obviously, when you get up that big, it was just call off the dogs. I believe every player on the Knicks roster that was active and available played in that game, which is cool for those guys to get some playoff minutes in a game that you are clinching a series and moving on to the second round, where you are now waiting the winner of Celtics-Sixers. And again, like we talked about on Wednesday, they're now in a dogfight, which I think has opened things up entirely for the Knicks. You see the top of the bracket with Orlando leading Detroit. You have Cleveland and Toronto, who I don't think have looked particularly great through the first couple games of their series. And so if you're the Knicks, contrary to what I said literally I think about a week ago this time exactly, it felt like this team had kind of hit their limit. And now you're looking at the Eastern bracket. You're through to the next round. You're awaiting a winner of a series that's been physical, that is beaten down. If you get the Sixers, you are absolutely capable of beating them, as you have shown throughout the season. And then if you get the Celtics, I think that they have shown that they're super susceptible, and you beat them in the playoffs in the second round last year. So that is maybe in the back of Celtics players' heads. Knicks players probably have confidence from that. So if you're the Knicks, all of a sudden, like we talked about on Wednesday, winning this series, handling your business, doing it in such dramatic fashion there in Game 6 so that your starters don't even have to really exert themselves. You now get an extended rest while you wait for the Sixers and Celtics to finish up. And the Knicks all of a sudden have a great chance to come out of the East and are looking at this thing saying, why not us? This could be our year. Let's finally break through, let everyone out in the West beat up on each other, see if we can't get through the East relatively unscathed, and then have a chance, because they're going to be undermatched and they're going to be underdogs in whoever they play coming out of the West if they were to make it there to the finals. So if you can handle business on the East side, whatever team is to come out of the East, they need to handle their business. And again, it does not look like Detroit's doing that. Does not look like the Celtics are doing that. Detroit's going to need 7 if they want to close it out and keep moving, and the Celtics are going to 7. So the Knicks are sitting pretty today. The Knicks fans are super happy. And if you're a Knicks player, coach, GM, you are looking at this thing saying we have an absolutely great chance to win this. So those were our games from last night. On Wednesday night, we had the Cavs beat the Raptors to go up 3-2 in that series. Cavs had a big fourth quarter comeback. I still don't fully trust them because I thought Toronto, again, still was showing things defensively that we saw in the last 3-4 games of this series, that they've unlocked something there, particularly on Mitchell and Harden. And so I don't know if I fully trust them. I think Toronto, I've talked about how this is going to be a zigzag game back and forth. I thought Toronto led for most of Game 5 and was, anytime Cleveland was having a little mini run, Toronto answered, and then Toronto built some pretty decent leads there, requiring Cleveland to come back at home in the fourth quarter. So I think the Toronto Raptors are going to go home and win their Game 6 to force a Game 7. And all bets are off. I actually think the Toronto Raptors have turned the tide since Game 3, have played much better than Cleveland despite being down 3-2. So I've got a lot of faith in Toronto. I don't like what I see from Cleveland right now. And then you have Detroit battling to beat Orlando, still trailing 3-2, going back down to Orlando now for a Game 6. Paolo Banchero and Cade Cunningham had an absolute masterclass, going for 45 points apiece, which is only the second time that that's ever happened, which was really crazy. Awesome game. Still, just again, this is a defensive battle between these teams. Was a little bit better there in Game 5 offensively, primarily because of the production of those two players. But now we're going back to Orlando. This one's going to be super interesting. Franz Wagner, unfortunately, is injured and now likely not going to be playing here in this Game 6. If he was, I think the Magic have shown that they are in great position and are just essentially, they're more talented, I think, than the Detroit Pistons, particularly when Wagner is playing, and they have shown that toughness to be able to compete with them physically. So with Wagner there, I think the Magic were going to go home, and I thought they were going to close that one out. I really think it's kind of a coin flip. It just, what the heck do I know at this point? It just feels like all these series, all these games are such coin flips. It really does, and this is NBA playoffs. This is playoffs in any major professional sport. The margins are just so small. It's the difference between 1 or 2 missed shots at random points throughout the game, or missed opportunities, whatever that is. And so the margins are just super small. And so this one's going to be a coin flip. I think, obviously, not breaking the internet here by saying, I think if Detroit can get a win, I think they have a great chance to close it out at home. And obviously, if they don't, the series is done. So not a whole ton of insight to give you there. I'm super interested to watch that game. I think it's going to be great, but I don't have much of a read one way or the other. I was all over Detroit early in this series, and Orlando has made me eat my words. So I don't know where to go on that one, but going to be a super interesting Game 6, see if Detroit can keep it alive. And before I touch on just our final game from the last time that we talked, just another testament to how great these NBA playoffs have been. I think myself, I don't think I was alone by pundits and talking heads out there predicting a lot of these series for like the Celtics and the Spurs and the Nuggets, and these things were going to be relatively short series, and the Knicks even, and all of them, not all of them, but majority of these playoff series have been extended to 5, 6, sometimes 7 games here that we're getting. So we're going to get several Game 7s and several super high intensity Game 6s this weekend, which is exactly what you want as a sports fan, as a basketball fan. This is the peak of NBA basketball. This is exactly the kind of the exciting games that you want. It's been must-watch TV every single night, so I've just been loving it. I expect this weekend is just going to be bonkers with some of these Game 6s, Game 7s, and then I think we're going to start seeing some of our second-round series get started here as matchups are getting figured out and all of that. So last game from last time that we talked that I want to touch on is LA and Houston. Houston coming back and beating the Lakers pretty thoroughly, kind of thumped them there in LA. Myself and many others predicted that Los Angeles Lakers, nothing to worry about after Game 4. You're up 3-1. You're going to go home, close it out, move on, and get ready for Oklahoma City. Now, a lot of panic that I'm seeing on social media, on my timelines and all those things, a ton of panic about, are the Lakers cooked? They are not going to be able to get it done. Like, is LeBron going to be the first player to lead a team that loses a 3-0 lead? Which, of course, there's no way around it if it were to happen, even with all the context of him being 41, being a massive underdog in this series, leading them to a 3-0 series lead at 41 without his two best players. No matter what, it's going to stick with LeBron, particularly with guys that hate him. If his team were to lose this series, that he's the one that blew the 3-0 lead, they're not going to need any context. That's just going to be easy fodder to kind of pile on the LeBron James hate. So I am not worried about it, to be totally honest with you. I still, even if it goes to 7, the Lakers still have 2 games, one of which is at home in a closeout scenario to close this out. I think Austin Reeves is going to be much, much better than he was in his first game back. Still looking pretty rusty from his injury and just not quite the Austin Reeves that we expected. I don't think he's going to be fully there here in this game 6, but I expect he's going to be way better and be a much better productive player than he was in the game that we just saw coming back from injury. So we saw LA go in and win on the road in Houston. I know it took LeBron James's buzzer beater or close to end of game shot to force overtime. But before they gave away a little bit of lead, the Lakers were controlling that game for about 2.5, 3 quarters. So they've shown that they can go to Houston and handle their business. I think they're going to go and do that here in Game 6. And again, if they don't, I think they will get it done in Game 7. I'm going on the record, and I just make fun of me if you want if it doesn't happen. But LeBron James is not blowing a 3-0 lead in a series. He will not be the first guy to do that, even at age 41. So that's kind of the rest of the week from what we touched on. We got some time here. I want to talk really quick on our NCAA Tournament Expansion. I had a chance to, over the last 2 days, read a little bit more about it. Read a couple different articles, found one really fascinating one that I'm going to talk about here in a second. But it's essentially the NCAA Tournament. It is all but a done deal that they are going to expand from 68 to 76 teams, expanding the field. It's unclear exactly what all of the details are going to look like, what the structure of it's going to look like. It sounds to me, from a lot of stuff of what I've read, and we'll see, it sounds like official news is going to come out sometime here in May about this. But it looks like to me that there's going to be some sort of all the 16 seeds have to do a little tournament to play against each other to get in, or some sort of weird restructuring where you are just kind of alienating the little guys even more than you already have in this NIL era with the disparity in money and all of those things. So I'm going through, I'm reading different articles, trying to learn more about it. Nobody has a ton of great information because there's no official details that have been released yet that I have seen. But I stumbled upon this CBS Sports article from a guy, Matt Norlander, who just did an incredible job kind of deep diving, talking about how this was on the rise, where this kind of stemmed from. And back in 2011, the NCAA created what they called a transformation committee, where it sounds like they kind of wanted to have some power and control over Power 5 decision-making, expanding tournaments and things like that. They wanted to be able to have some control amidst the Power 5s that were growing and starting to get more money, with NIL kind of on the precipice, looming large, that was eventually going to be coming, which I think everyone figured was on its way. It just was a matter of when. So and from reading this article, from what I can gather, the NCAA tournament is not that focused, or the NCAA, with the expansion of the NCAA tournament, is not that focused on making more money, at least not in the short term. This is more of the NCAA bending the knee to Power 5 conferences and commissioners because they are scared that they're going to have more power than the NCAA itself and have the ability to create their own mega tournament within these big power conferences if they are not getting invitations to the NCAA tournament. So this feels like, to me, like a coward move in the sense of these schools have been given power, they are expanding their conferences, and instead of working with them, finding a solution, finding ways to put some guardrails in place, make all this NIL stuff a little bit more manageable, make it reasonable, realistic for coaches, for GMs, for school administrators at these schools to figure out. Instead of that, they are just kind of placating and saying, we're just going to expand the tournament, we're going to give you what you want, your Auburns of this year, your teams that are on the bubble. Sure, you guys just come in, please, just don't leave us in the dirt and leave us with the low major, mid-major schools that clearly they're not very interested in right now anyway, because they are just screwing them on every turn between